After more than 4 years, blackmyth Wukong has finally gone gold, meaning we will see it released soon. In all those years, we had a ton of info that you might have forgotten about or completely missed, so I did a ton of digging and will share every important detail you need to know about the game. In blackmyth Wukong, you'll be stepping in the shoes of the Destined One, aka Sun Wukong. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because the Monkey King is one of the main characters in a very popular Chinese novel called Journey to the West. In it, a monk is tasked with the retrieval of important Buddhist scriptures, and he is accompanied by a band of mythical beings, one of which is the all-powerful Monkey King, Sun Wukong. But blackmyth Wukong will not be a retelling of this Journey to the West, it is instead a story that takes place after the novel. So we embark on a new adventure in the game in which we'll meet plenty of characters and other mythical creatures. Some of those we'll have to fight, and we have a pretty special weapon for that, the Ruyi Jingu Bang, Wukong's staff that can grow and shrink in size. Many of your heavy attacks use the staff's unique properties, and they're all tied to the game's stance system. While it looks like you'll only be using one weapon over the course of the game, this staff can be used in 3 different stances with their own light and heavy attacks. Smash stance is the basic starting stance and gives you access to a powerful overhead slam. Pillar stance allows you to use your staff as a pole and perch on top, keeping you safe from enemy attacks on the ground, and then you can jump off and smash down with a powerful strike. And the final stance, thrust, also uses the staff's growing abilities, but in this case to deliver a long-range poke that deals high damage. Unlike most games, heavy attacks aren't really their own combo, but instead they are fueled by a resource called focus. You generate focus by attacking and dodging and can then spend it on a heavy attack. You can also try and perform a heavy attack without any focus, but doing so means you need to charge that attack, which leaves your defense wide open. And speaking of defenses, it's good to know that in blackmyth Wukong you'll be mainly focused on dodging. While you can block ranged projectiles with your staff, you cannot protect against melee attacks, with the exception of some spells, but more on those later. You'll need to watch the timing of enemy attacks and dodge out of the way, with a perfect dodge triggering this after image of the Monkey King. I haven't seen them do anything in footage, but I've heard mention of an upgrade that makes these explode, so that makes it extra rewarding to get the timing just right. But yeah, boss attack patterns look pretty relentless, meaning you also have to watch your stamina meter closely, as both attacking and dodging of course spend this resource. So while you're limited in your defensive options, there are other ways to help you survive the tougher boss fights. Because Wukong is an action RPG, you can expect different armor sets, different versions of the staff, and even different versions of your healing item. We know armors can come with set bonuses, so you get extra buffs when you wear multiple pieces from the same set. And by the way, if you want to start out with an awesome armor set, you can get this folk opera set if you buy the game's digital deluxe edition. We're also doing a giveaway for that edition of the game, so leave a like on the video and make sure you're a subscriber to the channel so you can enter via the link in the pinned comment. But yeah, different armors also have different defenses, and I have a feeling that especially elemental defense types are going to be pretty important. As you can see from the menu, there are separate resistances for burn, ice, poison, and lightning damage, so if you encounter a boss that deals a lot of lightning damage, then you want to make sure you equip an armor that's resistant against that element. And while the wide variety of bosses we've seen so far look challenging enough in their own right, you can actually make some of them even more difficult if you perform really well. This Macaque Chief boss, for example, has a hidden second phase that can only be triggered if you defeat his first form within a certain time. He will then flee to a different arena where a much more difficult second phase is waiting for you. While I'm not sure how many bosses have an optional second phase like this, discovering that is definitely one of the things I'm most looking forward to. But even without a secret second phase, defeating a boss will always be rewarding, because from what we've seen so far, they always reward you with a useful new spell for your arsenal. You can turn into stone and stagger the next enemy that hits you, draw a protective ring of fire around yourself, or use the plug of the many to create a monkey clone army to distract an enemy. What really strikes me is how versatile these spells are, as all of the ones we've seen so far can be used both in offensive and defensive ways. Sure, you can freeze an enemy in place to heal yourself or get some extra time for a dodge, but you can also use it to charge up a heavy attack or go ham with a combo. And nowhere is that more true than with the transformation spells, which allow you to use the form and abilities of defeated bosses and enemies. These shapeshifting forms have their own health bar, meaning Wukong cannot be damaged while you are transformed. So they're an incredibly valuable tool, but because they're on a long cooldown, you really need to pick your moment when it comes to using these powerful abilities. You're also limited by the amount of spells you can equip, as you can only have 4 selected in your ability wheel at a time. Spells are also divided into different categories, and you can only pick one skill from each category. So you can't stack your ability wheel with only transformations or combine the defensive stone solid ability with the sneaky cloud stab, as both of those belong in the enhancement category of spells. You are able to power these spells up though, as one of Wukong's main skill trees is dedicated to magic. While we sadly have no footage of these, we know there will be 3 main skill trees. One will be dedicated to magic, one to staff combat, and one to Wukong himself. The staff combat tree is where you'll unlock stances and other new staff attacks, and the Wukong tree has things like health upgrades, reduced stamina cost, and I'm guessing that exploding after image skill I mentioned earlier too. You earn skill points by defeating enemies, but you have to be careful, as dying means you'll lose progress towards your next skill point. However, don't mistake blackmyth Wukong for something as punishing as a Souls-like, as you only lose part of your progress towards the next skill point, and you cannot lose already earned skill points either. The game will feature a bonfire-like checkpoint system where you respawn when you die or rest when you run out of healing, which of course also respawns enemies in the level. However, Wukong does not force you to go to these shrines to spend your skill points. No, instead skill points can be spent at any time by simply accessing the menu. Shrines have other uses though, as you can fast travel between them to go back to earlier areas. Important to note here is that blackmyth Wukong will not be an open world game, and while previews noted the early hours are relatively linear, we know there are some more open-ended areas later in the game as well. And even in the more linear parts, exploration should provide you with a ton of rewards. There are treasure chests and materials to grab, but also traps, ambushes, and surprises, like this hidden enemy that's just hiding as a plant and only attacks if you try and grab it. You can also miss out on transformations if you skip some of the optional bosses, like this fiery glaive-wielding monster. And some bosses, like this dragon-like lone creature, are part of expansive side quests, although we don't know exactly what those entail and how they're going to work yet. So yeah, a ton to get excited for. The game is releasing on August 20th on PC and PlayStation 5. An Xbox version will release later, as it needs a bit more tweaking to meet the studio's quality standards. When it comes to the length of the game producer has stated it will take you 15 hours to complete blackmyth Wukong. However, that quote from an interview with IGN stems from back in 2021, and looking at the gameplay and trailers that have come out since, I think the project has become a bit more ambitious than that. And speaking of ambition, while we don't have any confirmation yet, there might be more content coming after launch. The pre-order FAQ notes, blackmyth Wukong employs a classic one-time purchase model with a one-time payment, but in the future we may release DLCs and non-pay-to-win in-game purchases. So yeah, if the game becomes a success, I can definitely see them adding more content in the future. And in that older IGN interview I mentioned, the developers also stated their true ambition is to make even more blackmyth games to tell even more amazing tales from Chinese mythology. So if all goes well, this game might be the birth of a new franchise. And we'll of course have a ton of tips and tricks ready for you on release, so subscribe to not miss those, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and watch our previous one on why Wukong might not be the game you think it is by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.